So in this presentation, we're going to take a more detailed look at the implementation and operating model of the DCF. At its core, the DCF consists of a set of on-chain and off-chain activities that cover 5 phases broken into a genesis block and an execution block. The DCF white paper itself covers 66 pages of material. So treat this more as a primer before you dive into the white paper itself. So let's start with a question on why hybrid. The answer is simple. Both on-chain and off-chain governance models have their strengths and weaknesses, their pros and their cons. On-chain is well suited to high degrees of automation, transparency, and audit, but can be difficult to change once deployed. Off-chain, on the other hand, is adaptable to unforeseen circumstances, but suffers from bottlenecks and prone to human error. So we leverage on-chain where it makes sense, like in the funding campaign phase, and off-chain for knowledge work activities, communications, and collaboration. This hybrid approach is designed to move progressively towards a more fully automated on-chain DAO, or Decentralized Autonomous Organization construct. So what do we mean by evolving? It means that as a consortium gains experience with the DCF model and the blockchain ecosystem gains capabilities, we can gradually move towards greater decentralization and introduce additional on-chain components. This is by design and leads to a self-emerging system that can scale to increasing complex scenarios completely organically. An example of this is communications, which may begin in a fully off-chain model and then take on gradual deployment of participation incentives and social media protocols, eventually reaching full integration with social media management protocols that have implemented participation incentives. Over time, other key mechanisms can allow incentivization to evolve towards proof of merit, but more on that later. Our white paper goes into much greater detail into possible implementations of several on-chain and off-chain governance mechanisms, including work package creation, consortium formation, legal review, financial and technology audit, dispute resolution, intervention, process oversight, and progress audit reporting. For now, just suffice it to say that DCF evolves over time towards higher degrees of on-chain automation. Deciding on when to implement and leverage the DCF mechanism requires judicious assessment of each initiative that will be used. We evaluated several candidate archetypes for potential DCF instantiation. These include engineering-oriented, i.e. core platform, solution-focused, i.e. industry vertical, financial, supply chain, life science, healthcare, etc., and research-oriented, i.e. quantum resistance for a consensus protocol. Several potential benefits of the DCF are detailed in the white paper, but here I'd like to highlight spreading of risk, scope, and cost while providing non-traditional access to capital for consortium members, and perhaps most crucially, prevention of stakeholder centralization through separation of powers. One important aspect of traditional joint ventures, limited partnerships, public-private partnerships, and consortium is their bindings to enforceable contracts and legal precedents. Similarly, with the DCF, all consortium members are connected to a binding legal entity that sits at the heart of the DCF itself. All consortium members are connected to the binding entity via the shareholder membership agreement, which can itself hold liability and property rights on behalf of consortium members. The binding entity is also tasked with distribution and ownership of equity derived from the founding partners and can be linked to an algorithmic proof of merit protocol. One example of a potential binding entity model is the Wyoming DAO LLC. In the white paper, we outline responsibilities for a DCF Facilitation Council, such as functional oversight, off-chain protocol mechanisms, educating the community, auditing, incident and crisis management, and recruiting experts and advisors, among other responsibilities. As mentioned previously, DCF transformation is largely broken down into two phases. First, we have formation of the DCF Facilitation Council, and second, composing the DCF Consortium itself. In assembling the DCF Facilitation Council, funding and founding entities engage with the community and community representatives to determine which entities are required based on specific goals, scope, and scale of the DCF being formed. Based upon the goals of the DCF, potential candidates are identified to fulfill work package creation. Community can vote for community representatives, while also forming a selection committee to recommend or nominate potential DCF Facilitation Council candidates. In the next setup of DCF initialization, the DCF Facilitation Council and the founding entities identifies and recruits executing entities such as management consulting firms, systems integrators, advisory services, boutique consulting, and/or strategic implementation partners. The in-life management phase refers to executing entities completing work packages and being properly compensated from Treasury, performing audits, and raising and settling disputes. 4 key documents underpin the DCF legal structure. The DCF Manifesto encapsulates vision and values and is codified and enforced via the DCF Shareholder Membership Agreement. This agreement outlines non-disclosure agreements, restrictions, fees, obligations, intellectual property and privacy rights, and liabilities claims exemptions. The Master Services Agreement outlines request processes for work to be completed and procurement procedures. A statement of work is then created for each work package and can facilitate RFP, RFI types of processes. So there are multiple options for defining contractual obligations in an IP strategy. The open-sourced approach contributes to the benefit of society, but limits potential competitive imbalances and disparities. IP rights can also be distributed within the consortium via algorithmic or otherwise agreed upon proof of merit protocols. Another approach would allow the binding entity itself to hold and control IP rights that are protected by consortium members. Each of these approaches has some strengths, some drawbacks, and the DCF Facilitation Council should weigh the merits of each on a case-by-case basis. Diving deeper into the DCF Charter and work packages, you'll see that the Charter summarizes guiding principles, frameworks, and typical operations for defining project vision, goals, structure, and a detailed implementation plan. Work packages themselves are units of work involving completion of specific objectives within a larger collection and serve as building blocks of activities and tasks. For example, a design and engineering work package might outline key artifacts, reports, models, and designs produced as part of assembling an architecture description. Key characteristics of work packages are specificity and detail, minimized interdependence, specific allocation, and clear milestones. Identification of specific work packages is based on a multi-stage process shown here. During vision and strategic goals, work packages may be more directional in nature. So as the DCF progresses, high-level work packages are identified according to prioritized strategic initiatives. Next, we break down these high-level work packages into objectives, KPIs, and outcomes and key results. At the final stage, discrete tasks ready for implementation are defined and captured in a work portal for sourcing and procurement. As with most joint ventures, partnerships, and consortium structures, financial management and risk mitigation is essential. This function has many parallels and corollaries with traditional corporate treasury functions, such as managing volatility risks, delivery risks, and may likely benefit from adoption and implementation of treasury management systems or enterprise resource planning systems. One exciting future potential scenario for this treasury function is an evolution towards a more decentralized, automated, and on-chain algorithmic state. Of course, this would be largely dependent on capabilities of the specific smart contract ecosystem and other capabilities of the underlying blockchain ecosystem itself. Innovations in stablecoins, central bank digital currencies, DeFi, and CeFi have come a long way. But leveraging these innovations to drive governance mechanisms themselves would allow us to come full circle. So with such importance placed on the Treasury Manager entity, we've also outlined criteria to help evaluating potential candidates to fulfill this role. Above all else, trust within the ecosystem, the community, and the consortium should guide all subsequent decision. But among these additional considerations, I highlight that the Treasury Manager entity must be crypto savvy, be able to deliver, maintain high quality of service, and due diligence, provide a competitive fee structure, and consistently add value through risk management and focus on key growth drivers. As disputes inevitably arise during DCF execution, arbitration mechanisms must exist to resolve them. Small-scale disputes should be resolved on-chain via algorithmic protocols such as prediction markets and/or integration with AI machine learning models. Large-scale disputes could leverage an expert court with potential for some on-chain elements with final deliberation by an international court of arbitrations. Disputes may fall into one of several quadrants based upon phase in which the dispute arises and the parties involved. As we explore information, privacy, and confidentiality within the DCF, we note the importance of sufficient transparency as a way to keep the community informed and engaged. For example, during the DCF formation phase, the community is engaged in the ratification of the DCF manifesto, while during in-life management, work packages, progress reports, audit reports, and biannual reports would be the preferred vehicle for community updates and engagement. While it's important to maintain transparency and community engagement, it's equally important to weigh the various risks associated with inappropriate disclosure, which may have significant legal consequences and the potential to inflict reputational harm and erode community trust. For a more detailed breakdown of formal reporting guidelines, we outline key sections of a possible DCF biannual report that would be somewhat akin to quarterly earnings reports, 10Q and 10K statements, and even corporate annual reports for publicly traded enterprises. Other types of formal reporting are outlined in much greater detail within the white paper itself, so I'll leave that for further reading. Informal reporting is an area where many blockchain projects have led by example, and these include mechanisms like GitHub repo activity reports, on-chain analysis reports, town halls and community calls, forums and summits like Cardano Summit 2021, real-time communication channels like Telegram, Discord, Slack, or even Reddit, community dashboards, and publicly accessible data privacy, security, and fair or intended use reports. So the key takeaways here are that DCF leverages the best practices from a wide range of fields and disciplines, including program and project management, financial management and accounting practice, corporate, business, and intellectual property law, engineering and construction, and community engagement and wisdom of the crowds, And we do this all to address the unique challenges of decentralized governance that leverages a hybrid on-chain and off-chain mechanism. Thank you for attending, and please stay tuned to this space. If you want to read more, go check out the white paper at the dcf.io and engage with us and ask your questions. Thank you.